Fellowship, a Unitarian Universalist congregation with no geographical boundaries. We believe in cultivating curiosity and transformation that is rooted in profound love. The COVID-19 pandemic has irrevocably shaped how connections are formed in congregations across the United States and the world. The Church of the Larger Fellowship is committed to being a resource within Unitarian Universalism and beyond. From worship to covenant groups, from classes to pastoral care, and from our monthly magazine Quest to our online community hub and our letter writing ministry, we have found ways to build connection and community even through the screen. We have been a model for ministry on the margins, providing services for isolated Unitarian Universalists, becoming a spiritual lifeline for our members in prison. The CLF supports the ministries of those who hold target identities: Blue, Black Lives of Unitarian Universalism; Trust, Transgender Religious UU Professionals Together; and Drum, Diverse Revolutionary Unitarian Universalist Multicultural Ministries, just to name a few. We know better than anyone how deep and meaningful connections can be formed, even from a distance. Unitarian Universalists have faced many challenges in these times, and we continue to persevere and fight for justice and equity for all people, especially during moments of crisis. We are proud to be a leader in this faith movement, and we invite you to get involved in our ministry. We strive to be a place where anyone from anywhere can find spiritual refuge anytime they need it. Welcome to the Church of the Larger Fellowship. We are so excited to bring you an all-new episode of The View. The View is a weekly Unitarian Universalist talk show discussing important faith-based topics from an anti-racist, anti-oppressive, and multicultural perspective. Every Thursday for the past 7 years, we have welcomed guests from every corner of the world. Our guests are writers, scholars, activists, and religious thought leaders who are shaping Unitarian Universalism and society for the 21st century and beyond. I hope today's show inspires you. Hope it builds your faith. Hope it gives you perspective to see the power of Unitarian Universalism at work in your life. Enjoy the message.
Hi, I'm Aisha Hauser. My pronouns are she and her, and I come to you from the land of the Coast Salish people. I traveled from the East Coast, and I am back in Seattle. Got here a half an hour before a lightning storm. My pronouns are she and her, and I am a middle-aged brown woman wearing a keffiyeh, symbol of the Palestinian liberation. I have long, curly, salt and pepper hair and glasses. And did I cover everything for our intro? Welcome to The View, Voices of Unitarian Universalism in our 15th season. Is that true?
I think it's 12.
Oh, I'm making shit up. 12th season of The View.
Feels like 15.
Michael, and I'm 1/3 of the lead ministry team and 2/3 of the second third. Or you're the first third, I'm the second third. The numbers interchange. Michael, how are you? Where are you?
Oh, goodness, beloveds. I'm doing all right. I'm here. I'm Michael Tino, another third of the lead ministry team of the Church of the Larger Fellowship, your Unitarian Universalist congregation without borders or walls. I am coming to you from bright, sunny Peekskill, New York, the land of the Kitchewan, Wappinger, and Munsee Lenape peoples in the Hudson Valley of New York, where it is spring. Spring is springing, the daffodils are blooming, the hyacinths are popping up, the trees are swelling with their buds and about to release their pollen, and my nasal cavity is well coated with Flonase, and I'm breathing. There is too much going on in my life and the world, and I am really glad in the lead up to the View this week, Dante and I were here a little earlier than y'all, but let me just shut down every window and program I have, and I did. I went through all of them. Quit, 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 quit. X, X, X. I shut them all down just so that like I could take this hour and be here with you. And as the opening credits started rolling, my daughter got home from a half day of school. So like everything quit except for life. And that's that I think is like my new motto. So Dante Hilliard, how are you?
Oh, such a complicated question these days. There is breath in my body, there are activity in my limbs. My cognition seems sharp. So I'm grateful for those things. Even as this dumpster fire continues to burn out of Washington, D.C., based on the will of the people. I am in Baltimore, Maryland. I am a learning fellow of the Church of the Larger Fellowship for Worship, which is my honor and my privilege. And I'm here in the land of the Piscataway people. And I am grateful to be in a faith tradition. I have never been a part of a tradition where we laugh so much in the doing of the work. And I am grateful for that. I'm grateful for that. Hey, DC, how you doing?
Hey, everybody. Dante, thank you. I'm DC Fortune. I am doing okay, I think. The jury's still out, right? So I am a fat, white, transgender man with no hair these days, wearing glasses and my trans happy UU t-shirt. And I am in central Pennsylvania, where it is bright and sunny and chilly. It's about 50, which is actually perfect weather for working outside. But I have a whole bunch of stuff to do inside today, which is kind of a pain in the butt. I'm in the ancestral home of the Susquehannock people on the banks of the Susquehanna River in central Pennsylvania. And I am off this week from my regular church job, but my service on the Ministerial Fellowship Committee means that I'm up to my nose in stuff I should have been reading for the past month. So that's why I have to be inside today. So anyway, I'm doing like the world's on fire, but I presently am not on fire. So I guess I'll take that as a win for today.
And as Woodland Parker would say, the world's on fire. We still fall in love, and we fall in love with our friends, and we fall in love. Parker, what did I say? Parker, Reverend Aaron Walter. I apologize. So I watched the show last week. I was traveling, but I did watch the three of you. I was waiting for the dancing. I was waiting for I was waiting for the three of you to get up and start dancing. Did I miss that last week? Did it happen?
It was chair dancing.
It was chair dancing, and I'm Irish, so it's only like waist down.
Anyway, all right. So you're okay. I was just my expectations were high. I was waiting for the three of you to.
That's because you have a sense of rhythm, dear, and I don't.
Put on, So yeah, I don't know. You want to talk a little more about what the Ministerial Fellowship Committee? It's a big deal, and one of the more lively posts of the last couple of weeks was a discussion about how many contract ministries there are, what's being recommended to congregations, and folks having obviously not in this process. I will say it doesn't sound unreasonable to suggest to congregations under a certain number, if it's an option to contract. I don't think they're telling them nobody could tell a congregation they have to do anything, as we all know. But I'm curious your thoughts about that.
Well, you're talking about two different things. You're talking about the settlement process, right? And then you're talking about the MFC, which is the credentialing thing. See, we on the MFC are the ones that will give the stamp of approval or recommendations for other stuff to candidates for ministry. And you have to be a fellowshipped minister in order to participate in the search process that we have. You can't see I'm moving my hands, right? Like I'm stirring. Okay. And what you're talking about also with congregations trying to find ministers and ministers trying to find congregations. And we don't have a bunch of 600 member congregations like we maybe once did. And so for smaller congregations, it's prohibitively expensive to use the traditional model of, we interview some folks on the phone, then we invite 3 of them to come for a weekend, and we put them up and we feed them and we pay for their airfare and all of this stuff. And then out of those 3, we choose one to be our candidate, and then we fly them back again and put them up for a week and feed them, and then we decide whether we want them to be our minister.
Right.
That's too much for a congregation with 110 members.
I agree. I'm saying there's people who were upset about I think
congregations now, and we're going to have a conversation next month with 2 folks from the transitions office at the UA. Okay. Yep, I've invited them on, and they're going to come. And what the current sort of standard is if you're under 150 people, don't engage in that big expensive process. Offer a contract or a contract to call ministry, and contract is a little less attractive to some ministers who want to go someplace and sit for 10 years. But contract to call also lets them know that we'd like to have a called minister, but it's too stupid expensive. So we're doing it this way because this is what we can afford, All right. Nicole Thibodeau is saying the transitions office recommends small congregations search for a contract minister rather than a settled minister.
I didn't know that.
A process which requires an interim, etc. The last two contract ministries. Well, no, I had a called ministry, and now I'm in a contract ministry. Both of those had interims because interim work is important. And congregations can have a half-time interim minister, right? If there are a number of ministers who do interim work who are okay with or who are available to do half-time ministry. Some of them are semi-retired. Some of them will work remotely. There's a bunch of different reasons for that, but I don't want to. Interim work is really, really important. And when I used to hang out with the cool sex educator people out there in the Bay Area, and they look at me, they're like, "You do what now? You're a minister?" I'm like, "Yes, I'm a minister." And I explained the process of interim ministry to them. And one of them said, "Oh, that's like so you don't get into a rebound relationship."
I love that.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they were like, "God, we should have something like that." And I thought, I can imagine the CV required for to do interim ministry there.
We're gonna go in depth with the transitions office. That is good. Yeah. I didn't realize that.
So there's 2 different things. What we'll be doing next week is the credentialing stuff, which means we have candidates come to us and we look through their packets, and then we have a conversation, and we say, "Yay!" or we say, "Here's a grocery list. Go shopping."
Here's some growth areas, right?
We probably should have a show on that process too, and
that would be great.
With the religious education credentialing people as well.
Oh yeah,
credentialing processes are not the same.
No,
they
are not
5 or 10 or 20 or 40 years ago, and people have all this anxiety that is put in them by people who went through the process
when it was a hazing process,
10 or 15 or 20 years ago.
when it was a brutal hazing process.
Yeah, and we want to be like, well, like not your mentor's MFC, right?
Well,
Right.
and yeah, and the credentialing process, and I think you could let me know. I had a mock interview with folks before the credentialing interview, which was probably more stressful than the actual, only because I didn't, I was like, it was good because then afterwards you can actually, but we like, I had someone who had been on maybe the MFC, I don't remember, but definitely credentialing, and like took it. I was in the interview, and it was compelling, and it would help to practice, because then by the time I got to the real one, I'm like, I got this, and anyway, that's a great idea, Michael. We can have folks to talk about that.
Well, and it's funny, like those mock interviews are often based in
The
how
old pattern.
5 or 10 or 20 years ago, because that's what people setting them up know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it does not actually prepare people for the interview that they're getting, which is much more relational and much more like actually based in what their call to the ministry is.
Yeah.
We've tried to move it in a healthy direction.
I went through this is 2025.
Is it?
This April session is my 10 years since I saw the MFC. And it is an entirely different animal. It is like I had a really great, supportive, affirming experience. And I know not everybody did, but the way we operate now is so far removed from what I saw 10 years ago when I flew to Boston in April from sunny California. That was the year it snowed every 20 minutes or so in Boston.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
Dante, you getting excited yet? Dante's us now. Have we gotten you excited?
Well, now
excited also, yet about going to the MFC?
Well, Reverend Michael and I have talked about, as the active seminarian here, is there a chasm between what the MSC is asking for and how we're being prepared in seminary?
The chasm is widening.
Wow.
It was a crack. The
MFC is progressing at a significantly faster pace than our seminaries.
Yeah.
That feels
and
like
that's in part because you look at the makeup of the MFC now, and it looks like our denomination. Okay, we are racially diverse. We are diverse in terms of gender and sexuality and profession and all kinds of stuff. Mm. It tends to be the very leading edge thinkers of our movement, which is awesome. But our seminaries are not necessarily a haven for the leading edge thinkers necessarily. I mean, they're really smart people, but the map or the menu that they've got to offer is limited. I think the MFC now is, I mean, it used to be the bastion of old white guys from Harvard, right?
Oh, like the Obama administration.
Oh, right, like that.
Oh no, you didn't.
Well, there was a lot of old black guys from Harvard, but yeah, you know.
Mm-hmm.
There were a few old black guys from Harvard.
Yeah, there were some black folks from Harvard.
Very few. Very
right.
few in the UNC.
Right.
Mostly old white guys.
Right. But now it's like, do we have any straight white heterosexual men? We have one straight white heterosexual guy over 40. The rest is everybody else.
Go ahead, Dante. You took a breath.
Go ahead, because the thought is kind of it's leaving me, and I'm trying to reel it back. So go ahead.
No, I'm actually curious because you are now you're in the process that is leading you to the MFC, and I'm curious. It is forever, as people love reminding me. So I don't, I want you to, and I know you and I push boundaries, and I want to be sensitive to that. You literally are in this right now. So
as my response to my committee's response to my project proposal is due next week. Yeah. Well, what I was thinking was, this is my second seminary degree. I'm working on a DMin now. I have an MA in religious studies, which was originally an MDiv, but I switched it over. And I can tell you both were progressive seminaries, some of the most progressive seminaries in this country. And I have never been required to read one book by James Cone.
no.
Same.
How progressive can they be, Dante, if you have not been?
Same.
The curriculums do not require these things. One was not a UU seminary, one is a UU seminary, but I have never been required to read James Cone.
And the standard curriculum for UU history or UU theology is largely set in stone for right now.
You mean at the two UU seminaries or through the MFC?
Well, I didn't go to a UU seminary, but I was in Boston, so we used the professor who came to teach at Andover Newton used the same curriculum that had been handed to her by, I want to say, Paul Razor, who taught at Harvard. And we didn't have anybody from the 21st century in our reading list.
I mean, we have progressive seminaries teaching classes like Concept of God, but no Black people, no Black thinkers, or no women thinkers, or God knows no Black women thinkers. That's still very possible in the 21st century.
I would love to get the presidents of both Star King and Meadville Lombard to have a conversation, because I know them both to be good people who are really, really progressive. And I'd like to, what can we do to support them to change this shit? I mean, it's one thing to just complain, but how do we, I can only imagine that they've got to be as frustrated as we are.
I will be in a room with them both next month, and I will make that invitation.
Awesome. I would love to have them on the show.
And again, I'm going to say this as a person who's been both in the secular academy and the religious academy, because I think they're very different. And I think we have to discuss them very differently. And I've had this experience in both. It feels slightly different in the religious academy because the religious academy is smaller and more intimate. Mm-hmm. But as a Black scholar, and I don't mean because I'm Black, I mean, I'm a Black studies scholar. Blackness is always at the center of my work. I've been in the canons of Black intellectual history since the 90s. This is what I do. So when I begin to articulate my work, there's usually no one in, and I'm an interdisciplinarian. So when I begin articulating my work, usually there's no one in the room who knows the literature.
You are the expert trying to educate the panel that's supposed to evaluate you.
Or the instructor, or, Jesus
God.
And that's not an uncommon experience, particularly if you're an interdisciplinarian, because that's still uncommon. People know one lane.
Right.
And yeah, if you're centering things outside of the sort of old, dead, and living white men's traditions. And if you're deeply centered in it, like I had a colleague when I was in performance studies whose committee asked him, he was a Latino studies scholar, like I was a Black studies scholar, and his committee asked him, well, can you just kind of whip us up a literature review of Latino studies? And
Do your own damn work.
Did you ask on which continent?
Yeah.
Like they didn't know how ridiculous of a request / requirement that was.
So
My head hurts.
you know, I want to like broaden this a little bit, but I mean, I think the specific is important, and all of these specifics that we're naming are a symptom of the white supremacy culture that the academy is founded in, right?
The Academy and Unitarian Universalism.
Yeah, oh yeah. But even in a seminary class, there's this understanding that this person with all the knowledge is going to come in and impart the knowledge to you. And I'm like, in a seminary class, that is so far removed from the reality of what we're dealing with that it shouldn't even be entertained as the like starting point for how we teach anymore. You know, I remember years and years ago, I was the director of young adult and campus ministry at UUA headquarters. Right? That was my job, my full-time job, and I was in seminary. And among other things, the young adults were asking me to basically teach Unitarian Universalist congregations how to do worship that was less boring than what they offered on Sunday mornings. And I will put it that way, because at the time we called it contemporary worship. But really what that meant was worship that was less boring than the sit in your head, clap on the 1 and the 3 nonsense, right? Okay. Worship that was embodied and engaging and accessible to different generations is what I was being asked to do by the young adults to whom I was accountable. So I became, for a while, one of our denomination's experts in that.
In non-boring worship?
In well, we called it contemporary worship, and I put that in quotes, like big scare quotes. That's what we called it 25 years ago. But
and they were still using John Denver, right? Who'd been dead for 10 years?
Not.
Okay, sorry.
This was not what I was doing. This was what I was trying to teach congregations not to do.
Oh, okay, good. Okay.
And I went to seminary and sat in my worship and preaching class with a professor who shall not be named. But that professor told me that models of contemporary worship dumbed down Unitarian Universalist worship so much that they were inferior.
Oh my! Can we?
And I was like, no. I'm like, you have just lost me as the expert in this room on worship. Right? I know that you're the professor. I know that you're getting paid, and you are no longer the expert in this room on worship.
Right.
You are the expert in this room on 1945, like
post-war
white men thinking intellectual things worship.
I always wondered why some of the folks who became not only UU ministers, but like leaders in our denomination, why they didn't do ethical culture, like our staunch humanist / UU, like, and people get mad at me when I say that, because this is not the first other UUs, and they get like legitimately upset at me. But my point isn't you can't be staunchly, holding on to whatever that is not what our faith is. Revelation is not sealed. So even though
Mhm.
you may worship the written word, which could we please break down white supremacy culture? But my curiosity's always been folks who do worship the written word, and that becomes the God that we say we're still trying to figure out for ourselves. It doesn't matter. What I have always said, and I think I've not understood fully the ways that our academic or seminary in general, not just UU seminary, well, I mean, for UUs, because we are very clear that Revelation is not sealed, that we are on a journey. It is good to learn these things in different places, and holding on to them in the way that Michael described has been the norm. I think it sounds like it's changing with the MFC, and it's changing slower in the seminaries. And I never fully understood why it was the case that, like, what I'm understanding true about Unitarian Universalism aren't matching.
It also feels to me as the sort of the baby Unitarian in the room, since 2016, that we deeply undervalue worship.
Yes.
Yes.
Because worship is it is the one tool that we claim can bring into the world that which we desire.
Mm-hmm.
And every time we gather, we are supposed to be practicing, rehearsing, and conjuring that world into being, which means that everything about worship is really, really important. It is not meant to be rote, stale, dead. Are we still here? Oh, okay, I'm here. And I think worship is meant to be highly innovative, radically imaginative, and experimental.
Yes.
And I don't just think that's about Unitarianism. I think actually most people who profess to be people who practice worship, who have worship services, are devaluing the actual meaning of worship. It just becomes kind of attendance. I'm here, right? Like, because I'm supposed to be here. And again, I believe in community building. I believe in being together. I believe in intentional community. But the word is intentional community. It's not just, hey, let's just be here. Right. It's not phenomenological community. Like, we're just going to gather and see what happens. There we go. Like, we're not just gathering to see what happens. We are here to conjure, to practice something, right? To call into being a new reality, and by embodying our values.
Can you read that, Dante, for folks who are listening? Can you read what Michael put up on the screen right now?
I can. So this comes out of my project. It's called Conjuring a Culture of Thriving. Let us all imagine, invite, and or conjure a vision of a world without violent hierarchies, a place where all people can thrive, and then intentionally embody / practice that world in our family, community, organizational, and institutional structures over and over and over again, until our present world is replaced by our sacred and embodied vision. May this be our prayerful prayer.
Ooh, ooh.
And this is what I'm writing about. That, for me, thriving is the center of religion. If thriving is not at the center of your faith, is not the center of your worship, if it's not at the center of your theology, I have questions. Because survival is not enough. Liberation is not even enough.
That's right.
My ancestors were liberated from prisons we call plantations, technically. but how much has changed for real?
Mm.
So, and liberation is historically bounded, right? So what happened? Okay, so you liberated, now what?
Right.
But thriving is always more. It's right. I can always be more full. I can always have more joy. We can always do better within ourselves and with each other. And so I think worship is one of the most powerful tools any of us have in religious leadership that
Yes.
people who don't practice worship don't have. We see it in other ways. Theater, because theater is not that different than worship. I mean, we want ritual work, because that's what worship is. It is a big ritual.
Yes.
And rituals are not necessary. You can orient to them purely symbolically, but they're not just symbolic, because we're embodying, which means we're transforming. We're changing ourselves and we're changing each other every time we re-embody it. So I just think we need to value worship very differently across the board.
I keep talking. I mean, I think here, so the discourse, I've heard it since the day I became UU about how mainline religions are declining, how we know religion now. And it is also true, people look to worship something. People want to be connected. We are wired for connecting. We are wired for imagination, however big or small. We're wired for look, I am, to your point about theater, I'm a Wicked devotee. I saw Wicked 4 times in the theater. I own the movie now. Wicked, because there is something that transcends what I understand in the plane right now. It takes me to, this month, this is the last few days of imagination, our theme for the year, for the month of March. And so I think people want that. I think what people don't want is stuck worship, right? They didn't re-release the Dorothy version of The Wizard of Oz, and it was going to get as much. I mean, maybe a couple people in a handful of places would have gone to see it out of nostalgia, but what a wholly a different way of telling a story. So there's something sacred, to your point. I think humans are wired for the ways we lean into connecting different part of ourselves that we don't get the opportunity to in our day-to-day lives unless we meditate, and that's not a great point. If we can lean into, and I've seen you do beautifully, Dante, oh my word, and you too, Michael. And I think leaning into parts of ourselves we're scared to touch, or we don't lean into for whatever reason, are things we can do in worship that we cannot do in our everyday lives in the same way.
Because it's not safe. Radical vulnerability is not
because
safe.
It's not safe.
Not for me.
No.
Radical companioning is not necessarily safe for me walking down the street.
That's right.
And it's not necessarily safe in our worship either, but we actually have the power to make it safe.
Or safer.
Right.
Yeah.
It's within our power to actually create that container with more safety.
Yes. And we can do that in ways that are meaningful for a plurality of peoples and contexts and experiences. This is what I love about Unitarian Universalism, is that we this is not impossible. We can do this.
Not to give away Dante and my forthcoming book, we have decided we're writing a book together, by the way.
Yay! The world needs that book.
But I believe, I won't say we, I think Dante can say whether he agrees or not. I believe that Unitarian Universalism fundamentally misunderstands pluralism.
Say more.
anytime someone complains, oh, that didn't speak to me, you are fundamentally misunderstanding pluralism. Someone has not educated you that there is someone else in the room who that worship service spoke to, and you needed that opportunity. You needed that opportunity to experience the worship that spoke to that other person in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
You need that. It's not even like you have to deal with it. It's not even like we expect you to put up with it. That is essential for your spiritual growth. That is essential for our collective liberation. That is essential for our thriving.
Yes.
Right.
Is having that experience of like watching someone else enraptured.
Yes.
But the Western culture of individualized piety does not make space for that.
Ooh. That's
Yes.
right.
It's supposed to be about me. Like, I'm supposed to get my endorphin shot, my feel good in the way that I enjoy it. But so I don't want to watch you enjoy, but what about me? What about my feelings? I feel like I'm Effie White in Dreamgirls. What about what I want? What about what's best for me? What about how I feel? Okay, I'm done.
Love it. For a long time, I wanted to get rid of the first principle when we had them, the inherent worth and dignity of every person, because people weaponized it. You're not doing what I want. I have inherent worth. I'm sorry. I think you're misunderstanding that whole discussion about affirming people and having inherent worth. It's not about you not liking things at this, during worship or at the congregation, because, and I do think this is where Unitarian Universalism very much reflects United States culture, the individualism and the transactionalism and the almost commerce quality. I think that's gotten less over the years since I've been a UU. I don't think maybe, I don't know. It's not, I think there's more upfront discussions now about how that's been challenging for people to meet their spiritual needs in a place that feels so transactional and more like a business.
Mm-hmm.
We have some really good comments that we have been. Thank you, Nicole, Diego, Melody. There's been great comments in the chat. So thank you for that lively chat. We've also been having a really lively, this is such a good discussion about who we are and where, and there is such rigidity and cruelty in the world. Having Unitarian Universalism in a place to grapple with what it means to be human. One of the things I preached this weekend is we are not meant to give in to our base impulses of cruelty. We're not. We're meant to move through the wounds that make us want to be cruel to get to our higher selves. At least that's what I want for us. We need to heal. How do we create a more, I think that's the thing this right now politically that's been there's a lot of layers of the fuck shit. The thing that has been distressing to me personally and spiritually is the cruelty. Like, it's cruel just for the sake of being fucking cruel.
Recreational. It's sadism. Sadism is getting pleasure out of inflicting pain. That's what that is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Can I add a layer of universalism?
Please.
So I also believe that we need to resist assigning to God that cruelty that we feel called to as our basis level.
I agree. Thank you.
Right? And so my universalist ancestors asked me to imagine a God that could not engage in that cruelty.
Ooh.
And it's hard if I want to make God a human.
Good point.
If I want to make God a human, it's hard. And I have to get over that desire, right?
And the Unitarians want to make humans God.
Yes. Well, that.
And I was not on mute, was I? Shit.
Ah!
So one of my favorite things in CLF worship is leading joys and concerns, or joys and sorrows. And I often, in the sort of centering moment of prayer, I like to say, source and force of life, who is us, but is so much more than us, right?
Mhm.
Because again, it's both and. Like, it's not either or. It's not immanence or transcendence. It's not either God's out there or we're God. It's not. It's not this simple. We share DNA with celery.
Some more than others.
Like 90%.
We sure
Like,
50% of your genes are the same as those in a banana.
I think there might be some variables in there for some folks.
like we're
Explains
not.
a lot, too.
We might be the apex predator of the planet, but we're not the highest form of life in this universe. We keep telling ourselves this lie, but we're not.
Mm.
We're not the highest form of life because other forms of life don't destroy each other the way we do. We're probably closer to a virus.
I didn't hear you.
We're
close to
probably
what?
more closer to a virus.
Yes.
Though orcas have taken up the call to destroying yachts, and I appreciate that.
I'm all for that. They also fuck with sharks just to be assholes because sharks are bullies.
Dolphins are the worst. Dolphins are assholes. I mean, they're cute and entertaining.
They're cheerful assholes. They're cheerful assholes, but they are totally.
They are.
Assholes.
I would
We
rather a
project
dolphin
onto them.
be sitting in 1600 Pennsylvania right now.
Me too. I'd rather
I
have
just
a
had this
dolphin.
Daryl Hannah flashback to the 1980s.
Oh, by the
Even
way,
a dolphin. Go ahead.
if you have you read Wild Seed by Octavia Butler?
Yes.
Dolphin.
Yes.
Okay, if y'all haven't read Wild Seed, Wild Seed is the prequel to her. She has a series. What is it called? The Patternist series. Futuristic sci-fi, where people have these psychic abilities and they can link people to them, and it gives them power. But the Wild Seed is the prequel, and she does this disturbing yet interesting scene around a dolphin that, if you haven't read it, you just got to read it to understand it. It's like telling you won't help. But that's why it started cracking up, because she knows what I'm talking about. But yeah, it's a great novel, Wild Seed, Octavia Butler. Get it. It's amazing.
And I was going to say a dolphin would know not to add people. So
to discuss.
I don't know. Dolphins are kind of indiscriminate with a lot of stuff, though.
Even they wouldn't add a report. We're mad about the wrong thing. They were literally talking about killing people because of whatever the fuck made up reason, because Empire makes up reasons to kill people all over the world. And they were using it. It was, I mean, watching that chat was wild. It's like, I don't even, yeah. But I go back to the casual cruelty of what we're conditioned into this country.
Yeah.
I know there's cruelty all over the world. This is the country I live in. It's where I've spent most of my life. So this is what I'm talking about right here. Yes, there is. And I come from a country that has banned, like, if you have the pride flag too prominently displayed, you will get arrested. Egypt, who thinks they are more progressive than other Arab countries, and they are in fact not. So I'm not saying other countries don't have their own fuck shit. This is the one in which I exist, and the fuck shit seems to know about. Here's what I want to ask the three of you. So here's the thing. If any one of us went into a system whatever it is, secular church. And when the system break, like we are hurtling. It feels like we are hurtling off a cliff. Like how? I mean, it is. We're not meant to sustain this kind of chaos. Like it
They want
is.
to break the system. They want to break the system.
I guess that's obvious, isn't it? That's
They
the
want
point.
to break it. Because when it is broken, the people with power are the people in charge.
And I would add, more than breaking the system, they want to break us.
Yes.
Because system be damned. If we're broken, the system only matters because of us.
Right.
And that's why they're getting more mad. They're picking students off and taking them and disappearing them with visas or green cards because ICE has been thwarted over and over again. They tried to take children in Chicago. They went into restaurants. I mean, they've people and the dude who runs ICE went on CNN and said people know their rights. So we can't. If you're depending on people not knowing their rights and that's your plan, you shouldn't be fucking doing that. But because ICE has been thwarted, and exactly to your point, Dante, they're wanting to break our spirit. So the more we can, that's why joy is an act of resistance. I mean, I heard that from Black activists years ago. Like, we need to, and silence will not protect you. Somebody, like a couple of people online were like, scrub your internet history. First of all, that ship has sailed for me. But also, our silence will not protect us at all. And if anything, the louder we are, the more people are loud about where they are and what we think, because that's exactly what they're trying to do. They're trying to break our spirit. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's your neighbors, babysit. If you are in a position where you can help people have nights together as a family, the adults in the unit, if you can babysit their young ones, I do that with my neighbors across the street. Do that. If you can have game night so your neighbors know each other, do that. If you can go for a walk.
How about open up
or sit outside on your stoop and go ahead.
I'm sorry. I was like, how about open up these dusty ass facilities that sit empty 6 days a freaking week?
How about that?
And create opportunities for the community that you are sucking resources out of.
Hello. What if you had a community make a third space? What if the community can come hang out twice a week at different times, once during the day, once in the evening? Have child care. What if there are so many creative ways we can.
And none of this is new. I just want to name this, right? Like, none of this is new. If you're a student of Unitarian Universalist history, you've studied the Iowa Sisterhood, women ministers in the colonial frontier. I hesitate, to use that word, but it was called the frontier. But in places like Iowa and South Dakota and Minnesota and even Michigan, when those were just being settled by white people, and they were allowed to serve Unitarian congregations as women ministers because men didn't want to live out there. Let's just be clear. As soon as those places became populated, those women ministers got pushed farther west. Whole problematic history. But if you study the congregation, right, if you study the congregations that were served by the Iowa Sisterhood, you will notice that they went into those places and asked, what does the community need? And how can this church serve the needs of the community? And their churches were all community centers. They had after-school programs. They had dinner programs. They fed the community. They had ice skating classes. I mean, it was like just a list of things. It was because their question was always, what does the community need? And the community needed a place to gather, and the church was in the center of town. And so the church became, so like none of this is new.
Yeah.
Right? None of this is new. Right. DC says the Black Panthers did the same thing.
That's why they killed Fred Hampton.
None of it is new.
The women of the YWCA took that social gospel shit to heart.
Thank you.
In years, the YWCA, 160 plus year old women's social justice organization, they were considered the experts on interracial relations in the United States. They had their own press. I believe it was called Feminist Press, or was it Women's Press? But they were publishing books around gender. They were publishing books around interracial relations. And again, they also have some problematic history. But as a person, I am proud to say I spent 6 years working at the National Office of the YWCA, because the work that they have done, they voted to integrate in 1949. I mean, that's
huge.
That's way above before the rest of the country. So people who take these things seriously they use their radical imaginations, they use their creativity, and they engage with the content. They tradition. I'm on this thing about Walter Brueggemann's traditioning. Like, they are actively traditioning. They are actively reshaping the traditions that they've inherited in the context in which they're living. And are we teaching that in seminary? That
we need to
goal
start
as religious professionals is to is to reshape the tradition.
We will work on that 100,000%. This was such an I didn't know where this conversation would go, and it always delights
I love y'all.
me. This was really amazing. I also want to point out, someone had a point. I wish I could march on my migration status. Here's what I want to tell everybody with a target identity. Let white people march. Let people with dominant culture. You could stay home. You can make sandwiches. You can just give moral support. You can make signs and hand them out. Do not be out there. I'm serious. This is not, they are wanting Black and brown people out there so they could harm us. Do not go out there. Trans people they want out there so they could harm you. No, stay home. Let the dominant culture people who are angry because they're fucking with their money, among other things, let them be out there. Don't stay home and dance. And yes, I think I'm serious when I say that. And thankfully, I'm seeing a lot of white creators say that. I'm on social media a lot, but there are white activists that are saying, if you have a target identity, a marginalized identity, stay home. We got this, because they know. The people who have been, they know that they want us out there so they could hurt us. I think maybe I should have, but right now it feels, there is something, I'm going to end now because I know we're at the top of the hour. There is some version of a relief I feel that we are at least now, no one can be in denial about what the fuck is happening. And especially the people that Martin Luther King Jr. spoke about in Letter from a Birmingham Jail. Because it's now hitting everybody, which was always fascist for enslaved Africans and indigenous people, but now it's hitting more people. So thank you all for another amazing, beautiful episode of The View. And we have guests next week, Ranwa Hamami and
Rachel Miss Livy. We're going to be talking about what comes next after the climate justice revivals that were organized this fall.
Wow, nice.
Did you have a last word, DC?
I was just thinking that the images we've seen out of that prison in Central America, I'm forgetting the country. Is it El Salvador? Nicaragua?
El Salvador.
El Salvador? Okay. The pictures out of those prisoners, those human beings with their shaved heads and being like, it reminded me of something. And so I went down the Google wormhole and found images of women with shaved heads on their first day in Dachau.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of the first things they did. And men with shaved heads and and white shirts on in my brain's not doing words today. Anyway, in a prison camp. Like, it's like, and they've done it in the open, publicized photos. It has already begun.
and it's ritual behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna leave it at that.
Mm-hmm.
And
Thank you all.
we will pick up that thread in 2 weeks when DC and I are back. But next week, climate justice with
Yes. Awesome.
with Rachel and Renoir. And thank you for being here.
We love you.
Bye, everybody. Have a great week.
Thank you for joining
the best
us.
week you can.
Special thanks to those of you who give generously to this ministry. It is because of you that this ministry is possible. You can click the link in the description to give now, or visit clfuu.org/give for more information. We hope you will join us next week for another episode of The View.